Thank you for volunteering. Volunteering means getting this piece of paper put in front of you. Been on a ride, so my pleasure. Our first speaker is Jason Hunter, a longtime Riverside resident and small businessman for over 30 years of experience in engineering, utility operations, and finance, having worked for several large investor-owned utilities throughout the United States and Riverside Public Utilities locally. Besides consulting, he is often tasked professionally with auditing government programs and providing expert witness testimony throughout California. Jason has served as both an appointed member of the City of Riverside Agricultural Rate Water Task Force, Riverside Unified School District's Citizen Bond Oversight Committee, and as past chair of the Riverside Community College District Oversight Committee. Fiercely independent, he is well recognized locally as an ardent government watchdog and advocate for taxpayer, ratepayer, and fee-payer interests. Jason frequently attends and comments at city meetings, and after studying the Riverside Transmission Project for several years, has led the public opposition to the project for the past several years. As a neighborhood advocate, he is the past president of Neighbors of the Wood Streets, current member of the Downtown Area Neighborhood Alliance, not association, and current chair of the Neighbors Better Together. He graduated from Massachusetts Institute of Technology with a degree in civil engineering and earned a Master of Business Administration, giving you a run for your money there, Tony, and with finance concentration in the University of Texas, Austin. He has 2 adult sons who are responsible for every gray hair he has, 3 dogs, and is a local karaoke legend.
Thank you. Good morning. It's great to see a lot of friendly faces in here. I haven't been here in a little while. I forgot how early it was to get up and come in here, but love to be here in front of this group. I've made this presentation now 3 times. This is my 4th in front of 3 other community groups in the Ward 1 area, Neighbors of the Wood Streets Downtown Area Neighborhood Alliance, and Northside Improvement Association. And it's gone over pretty well. What we're trying to do is educate folks as far as a project that's kind of be transformational in the city of Riverside. It's a big project. It's almost $1 billion project that's going to forever impact how this city works and looks and operates for really the next 100 years. So we're doing our part as Neighbors Better Together as a platform issue for us to educate the community and really maybe get some project changes through at the city council level, because the project is really controlled by the city council, whether it happens or it doesn't, or what it looks like ultimately. I think a lot of times we see people, when they don't want to make changes, they throw their hands up in the air and they say, we can't do anything, we're being stopped by other people, these mysterious forces. It's not the case with this project. It could be stopped or changed at any time by our city council. So let's get rolling into it. How many people here have even heard of the Riverside Transmission Reliability Project? Even heard of it? I'm not saying you have to know anything about it either. That's pretty good. That's probably 2/3 of the room. That's not bad. How many people feel like they're fairly well educated as to what, well, I'm going to call it, so I don't have to keep saying Riverside Transmission Reliability Project over here. I'm going to call it the RTRP. How many people feel like they're fairly well educated as to what it is and its impacts and even where it is? Okay, so that's good. This is kind of our target audience. It's a lot fewer hands. Once again, my name is Jason Hunter. My bio is just right up there, but I think the more relevant part of it is I've been in the utility industry now for over 25 years. And before I came to Riverside and worked for Riverside Public Utilities, which is why I'm so intimately exposed to what RTRP is and what it represents, I worked for several Fortune 100, 500, and 1,000 companies throughout the entire United States, and I managed billions of dollars in assets. So I have an intimate understanding of how these projects get done, the process for them, and what they mean, and what they, for the community and other stakeholders, pretty well. I have a lot of experience. Next slide, please, Brian. And I'm going to try to keep my big head out of the middle of the slides here. So it's kind of hard to read, but it's a chicken joint. It says, "This is fantastic. Where did you get the chicken?" And it says, "Don't ask." There's a bird flying into the transmission lines. And it's a joke, but believe it or not, fires, very serious fires, throughout the United States have been caused by things as little as birds flying into the transmission lines, being electrocuted, catching on fire, and falling to the ground and catching brush on fire. That's all it takes for these lines to start a major catastrophe of fire. Throughout the history of, and I don't have the exact numbers, but the history of California, I think several of the largest, the top 10 wildfires that have ever started, and I'm including, I believe, the Camp Fire, which was the deadliest fire in the history of the state of California, which only happened a few short years ago, were started by transmission lines. There's this false narrative that's being peddled out there in the community that it's not transmission lines. And transmission lines are those giant towers you see out there. If you're going on some of the major highways out there, you'll see these giant towers, hundreds of feet in the air, stretch across the highways and all over, kind of blighting the entire landscape. Those are transmission towers. Distribution lines are the wooden poles you see interspersed throughout your community. And there's this false narrative out there that distribution lines cause all the fires. That is not true. It's not true. Some of the largest wildfires in the history of California were started by transmission lines, including the fire in Altadena, which they suspect that hasn't been 100% proven, but only 99 at this point in time. Right? So I think we can safely assume that those transmission lines played a part in what happened in Altadena. So next slide, please. This one shows just, I don't want to bore you too much, but this shows the city of Riverside, and I kind of scrunched it up here, which is why it seems like the map's a little bit off. This is the 91, here's your 60 running up that way. And this is where the city of Riverside gets its power. It's important to understand, well, why are we doing this project? Because up here, where it says Vista, this is where Riverside Public Utilities connects into Southern California's wholesale energy grid. And we have one connection. And where they plan on putting a second connection is down, we're going to run it through the river bottom. It's going to connect over here, right north of the airport, next to the sewer, where our sewer plant currently is located. The old model of service until about 20 years ago in California was that every single utility kind of supplied its own service as far as electrical needs went. So it knew what its demand was from its customers, and we would try to self-build either transmission lines that came into Riverside or power plants. So we've got a couple of power plants in Riverside. How many people even know we have power plants in Riverside? We have 2 of them. We have a small gas-fired plant over here called Springs. Basically, in an emergency, you break the glass and you turn that one on. It's not the most efficient unit in the world. And then we've got a larger one, once again, over here north of the airport, next to the sewer plant, called the Riverside Energy Resource Center. And in times of trouble, should our transmission lines up at this Vista substation where SoCal Edison brings their power into us, if those should fail, we do have some backup generation. But the problem is that backup generation is not enough in the summer in particular, during peak times when everybody's running their air conditioners. And if people aren't familiar with what really drives electrical demand in the city of Riverside, or really anywhere, it's summer peak time load, what they call, when you're running your AC in the summer. Those AC units suck up tons of electricity. So that's when the peak load is really, really hot. And of course, that's when the power is likely to go out, right? Which is going to inconvenience you the most. So, next slide, please. All right, so here's the RTRP route. And if you can't see it, I'll try to describe it to you. It comes in along the 15 East Vale through Hoopa Valley, cuts across a little section of Norco right here, and then runs directly south of the Hidden Valley Wildlife Area until it crosses Van Buren and then goes over to what they call the Wildlife Substation, which once again, next to the sewer plant north of the airport. Why do these lines look different? And actually, they look a lot even more different now. This is above ground. this checkered line right here. And this is below ground. In fact, more of this now is actually solid black because the city of Riverside Valley challenged the California Public Utility Commission's decision to put those lines above ground. And they were successful. And they did a supplemental EIR, Environmental Impact Report, which said that putting the lines below ground is a superior environmental alternative. But they had to do a supplemental EIR to get to that point, to put those lines underground. Why is that important? Because our city council refuses to do that. And in my opinion, that's the sole reason why this project isn't being put underground and avoiding all the risks that I'll show you in a little while we're taking by putting these above ground. Next slide, please. So let's look at the Riverside transmission reliability story, the history. This is kind of an engineer's graph up here, but I'll explain it to you. It basically shows how we've got a limitation where we bring in all of our power from Southern California, Edison, at that one transmission point. And what we're worried about is if we should, for whatever reason, lose access to that point, we could have blackouts in the city. And we have had one in the past. Does anybody remember where the power was out in the city for a few hours? A few months. I know we got some long-time residents here. So 2006, and right afterwards, the project was approved. It was out for a few hours, power in the whole state. They fired up. I don't think we even had many backup generators. I don't think the Riverside Energy Resource Center had even been built yet. So the power was out. The project was approved, immediately, right? Because we're kind of reactionary around here. We approved the project then. We said, and the completion date was expected when they passed it in 2012. And RP went out and screamed and shouted and said the world was going to end, and if we didn't get this built by 2012, we have no power in the city of Riverside. Well, I'm here to tell you it is now 2026, and none of those dire circumstances have come about the way they were described at the time. And why is that? Because people are getting better at conserving power, and also a lot of folks are putting solar on their roofs. Each house in California eventually has the possibility to become its own little personal generator. You're going to generate all the power you need right off your roof. And maybe even your cars, and it will use those as backup batteries. So there's a lot of emerging technology which has kept this graph from hockey sticking, what they call it at the end, and just going through the roof and saying, oh, we're so far above what we can import from SCE. Remember, we always have about 240 megawatts. This is 600 where that line is about 590 or so. We have about half of that in the town itself that we can generate. So we're not going to go completely dark. We've built some generators since then. So if the power went out in the winter, probably not a problem. The problem's going to be if power goes out in the middle of the summer. So there is a need for a secondary interconnection for a line, in my opinion. I don't think we're going to conserve our way out of it. I don't think that new technology is going to show up tomorrow and save us. I think that's going to take 10, 20 years, quite frankly. In the interim, we need something. So, 2011, City of Riverside Valley was incorporated. That's important. I'll tell you why in a second. 2013, RTRP, the EIR was certified and approved. In 2015, 2020, the City of Riverside Valley intervened, and the California Public Utility Commission agreed to change the route and underground all of the project through their city. Once again, the supplemental EIR concluded it's the environmentally superior alternative. 2020, the final permission to construct the project was given to Southern California Edison, who's the lead on construction of the project, by the CPUC, the California Public Utility Commission. 2017 onwards, because there was not a lot of community engagement and outreach on this project, the project was kind of pushed through as quickly as possible. Why can I say that? Because I worked for RPU, I know exactly how it's done. It was ran through as quickly as possible to try to blitzkrieg the opposition before they were ready to put up any sort of substantial fight. Not just here in Riverside, or I should say, not just in Riverside Valley and other areas, right here in our own backyard in Riverside. We did it to our own citizens. Okay, so citizen-led groups are a little bit behind usually the city and what they're planning. We finally got it organized and we started lobbying to modify the project, and eventually we got a task force. We went from 0 votes on the city council through successful lobbying to 4 votes. And we got a task force ready that started to look into how we could possibly change this project, how it eventually got built. Well, what happened? Of course, we had an election, and we lost one of our votes. And so we went from a 4-3 vote to a 3-4 vote on the council, despite the massive public campaign against it. The unfortunate thing is, 2 of the 3 new council members who came on board in 2024 told us directly to our face, literally days or weeks before they were put on the council, that they were totally 100% in favor of undergrounding this project. As soon as they got on the council, they changed their minds within weeks. So, I don't mind, as you know, anybody who watches me go down to city council, I don't mind naming names. It was Councilman Robillard and Councilman Bell. Wards 3 and Wards 5. And we have them on video committing to putting that project underground, literally weeks, if not a few short months before they changed their minds. So, RPU controlled work is about $280 million. The whole project's about $700 million, which means Edison's doing the other $500 million of the project. It's paid for out of your reliability charge. You ever notice that reliability charge when you bill for RPU and wonder, what the heck is this all about? Well, that's what you're paying for. See? And once again, our big complaint was, if they'd engaged the community at all at the onset of this project, we probably wouldn't be here today. But there wasn't community engagement. It was done literally by calling community meetings that they knew no one would show up to, but whispering that we're going to have a community meeting on the West End, and then saying that was our community engagement. That's fake community engagement. So, next slide, please.
I have a question.
Sure.
As I recall, and I don't know all the particulars, the council voted against it because there was some stipulation in the verbiage that would have caused it to just stop. Is that correct? And can you explain that?
Well, no one's ever.
After this question, hold all of your questions until the end of the presentation.
Sure. So the commitment on behalf of RPU was, if they stopped the project altogether and didn't do a supplemental DIR, then they would have to pay back all of Edison's cost, which Edison was saying at the time was $30 million. And I was saying, RPU's got almost $300 million in reserves, sitting there doing nothing, quite frankly, of our money. I commit to $30 million and restart the project. You don't build a 100-year ugly project. There's something in the utility industry. We say with these big capital projects. That was what the commitment was. So here's what the towers look like. And here's the tower we're going to get. And it says here it's going to be about 90 to 110 feet, but that's at a certain span. I actually just recently looked at the project specs. These towers aren't going to be 90 to 110 feet in the air. They're going to be close to 200 feet in the air. 200 feet. This is your standard wood pole. You can see how this already dwarfs this. Imagine this pole being twice as high. That's what's going to be running by the Hidden Valley Nature Center where we take our kids. Okay. Think about that. And all that open space, the last of the open space out on the west side of Riverside. Next slide. All right, so what could be done with the RTRP if we went out for another EIR or supplemental EIR? It could be a new EIR, it could be a supplemental. We could look at adding more internal generation like our work at our Springs units. We could, and that includes solar. We could do more undergrounding of the project. We could look at new and emerging technology. I can tell you, being in the energy industry, especially on the electricity side, technology is changing daily, certainly monthly, and for certain yearly, since this project was first started being planned in 2006, it's 20 years later, we're still using or assuming we're going to use the old technology, even though we're 20 years now in the future, and things have completely changed as far as energy delivery goes. There's battery storage out there now. There's distributed generation, which means small generators like solar on your roof that are now, you can now place within neighborhoods. You wouldn't even notice they were there. There's peak shifting, there's energy efficiency. I'm not going to bore you too much, but there's all sorts of different things you could do that are different than just dumping giant energy lines through the West End, above ground, along the Santa Ana River. not just the Santa Ana River, but the Santa Ana River Trail. So once again, it's not just Hidden Valley. Imagine you're going down the trail with your kitchen trying to enjoy a nice peaceful day, and you can hear the crackling of transmission lines overhead along the entire trail. And I just find it funny, and I've asked the mayor about this. I said, do you want to put the river back in Riverside? I'm 100% for it. I think it's a great idea. I've lived in cities where that's been a really successful model. But how are you going to do it when you're placing 200-foot transmission poles that people are supposed to be ignored, right? And they're going to be walking? It doesn't make any sense to me. And lastly, you can do new routes or alternative configurations. This map is just other routes that were considered. You know, at one point in time, there's these red lines up here, and this is where the airport is. These red lines, they were going to put those lines through the wood streets. Could you imagine the opposition to that? And then there was another one, which I actually kind of favored, which was they were going to run through River Valley down Van Buren and then cut across from Van Buren over to the sewer system. So there were other routes that they could have done that would have been less impactful and not run through the river bottom. And we'll get into why that's so important. Next slide. So NBT set about maybe around 7 or 8 years ago to see if we couldn't move the council off of their positions. We had 0 votes at the time, 7-0 against us to do anything new. But I love this quote because it really does sum up how changes are made in the community. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has, right? So, that's by Margaret Mead. So we went about when we started collecting signatures. We gathered over 2,200 signatures from the community. Showed them to the council. Do you know what difference it made? No. Absolutely none. Absolutely none. So, next slide. So I wanted to give an example of, well, can this be done? Are you just, blowing smoke, Mr. Hunter, or is this something that you can change it at this late stage in the game? Of course you can. I'll give you an example of what happened recently in another project. CPUC approves underground and attached transmission lines to the city of Chino Hills. This is back in 2013. They were actually building the towers. The towers were going up. They had several towers that were already built. We don't have that here yet. Okay. They had towers behind people's houses, and when they saw how impactful those towers were going to be for the first time the residents saw them, they were outraged. And they started protesting. They eventually got the president of the CPUC to say, it's the dawn of a new era in transmission line planning in the state. In urban and suburban areas, we have to look anew at how we site transmission lines and carefully weigh their role in fulfilling the state's energy goals against their impact on community values. I know undergrounding costs more, but I believe in this instance the costs are manageable and relatively minor considering the overall well-being of the populace in doing so. Okay? Chino Hills protested. Chino and Ontario didn't. They have to live with above-ground transmission lines. The community then decided we don't want them here. They got what they wanted. Okay? And do you know who pays for those overhead transmission lines that run through Chino Hills? We all do. It's been socialized into our bills. We get a bill from the state every month that's incorporated into your RTRP, your RPU bill that you pay every month. We are paying for those below ground lines. And my question to you is, why can't somebody else pay for our lines if we're paying for everybody else's lines to go underground? We need to stop letting others treat us in the city of Riverside as second-class citizens. That's really what it comes down to. Chino Hills advocates, we do not. And that's why we don't have the nice things that the communities do. Next one. We asked city representatives to support undergrounding of all RTRP transmission lines and or study new configurations and pass them on alongside the riverbed. If this encompasses starting the project from scratch, so be it. You do not build what I call 100-year ugly projects that are unsupported by the broader community. Effects from public safety power shutoffs will be devastating to this community as these lines are the antithesis of reliability. Remember, this is the Riverside Transmission Reliability Project. But you know what happened during the fires of last year? What Edison did to the communities of Krupa Valley, into Paris, into Woodcrest during those fires when the winds were really blowing. And the winds really blow around here at times. They shut off all of their lines. And that's what Edison allowed the power to do to us once they put those lines up. And that's supposed to be our second line into the city that's reliable. Every time the wind blows, because of the risk of wildfires, They are going to shut down those lines. How that is not going to affect folks over here, folks in the community here, when all their food in the freezer defrosts, right? When you don't have any power and you're reading by candlelight in your houses. Because that's what people in those communities had to do. Some of them had their power off for as much as a week and a half. Could you live without power for a week and a half? Okay. New fire hazard maps just came out, end of 2024. And I'll show you what they look like in a second. RTRP path is in the highest fire hazard safety zone. And that depends on high winds, dry and dense brush, and the fact that you cannot fly aircraft anywhere around those lines in case of a fire. So if there is a fire, even if it's not started by the lines, you have no help from the air. There's no helicopters, there's no plane drops coming into the water. You can't fly next to it, particularly in high winds. So because of that, these areas are considered the highest fire risk areas in the state. The Los Angeles fires last year. The Altadena fire is suspected to be caused by the exact same configuration of power lines as they're proposing in our west side of our city. The exact same. Okay. For more information, there's a website set up. It's been set up by the city of Norco. It's called burythewires.org. Hopefully that's really easy to remember. You get all sorts of other information from a different source, not from me. And by the way, I'm not paid to say anything about this project in favor or opposed to it at all. I do this completely out of community service to educate people as to what's being proposed on the west side. The neighbors of the Wood Streets, Northside Improvement Association, and the Downtown Area Neighborhood Alliance have all written letters of support. So my question for you all today is, where does the group stand on this? We're going to try to get letters of support from every community group in the city of Riverside to show the city council we don't want this project the way it's currently being configured. Next slide, please. So I always put these at the end because if I put them at the beginning, it's all you're going to think about, these maps. When I show you and interpret for you what this map means. This is the new fire hazard severity zone map. Here's the Santa Ana River. Here's the municipal airport where about the project comes in. It comes down the 15, cuts across here, where you can see this red and sort of orange areas here. And of course, the darker the area is, the more severe it is. There's tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. Three being the most severe area of fire impact. And what has that resulted in? Well, the new maps that have been released, based upon new data, the fires that are happening all over the state, has resulted in severe hikes in homeowner insurance premiums or loss of coverage altogether. And it's actually already resulted in changes to the city of Riverside's fire hardening ordinances. How many people are here even aware of the city of Riverside's new fire hardening ordinances, where you're going to have to do all sorts of things around, if you're in any of these areas, to your houses, like cut down your trees and you no mulch and all sorts of new rules that the city can tag you for a code violation if you are not in conformity with, because they recognize, in the fire department in particular, the risks of fires. So I ask you, if we're changing all of our rules because of the risk of increased fires, why are we building above ground transmission lines through the highest fire hazard area in the city? Right here, right here. A lot of homes over here. You go all on the west side and of Riverside. They happen to be a lot of low-income homes. What I've noticed in the energy industry in 20 years is that when we do highly impactful projects like this, they tend to end up in those areas. Last slide, and I'm done. I want folks to see Altadena post the fire. Is this Riverside's future? All right, take a look at this. Can you see this clearly? It's gone. That whole city is gone. So when I hear, Jason, you're overestimating the risk, this is maybe a 1 in 100 year occurrence you have a fire like that. Are we willing to take a 1 in 100 year risk that this is Riverside? Because the problem with those wildfires is you can't fight them, and they're unpredictable, and they can skip past neighborhoods. So you think, oh, it's the problem for the people up on Mount Rubidoux or the west side of town. That's not what we saw in Pacific Palisades in Altadena. These wildfires spread within hours, took out half the town, skipped over complete communities and neighborhoods, and all of a sudden started new fires a half mile away. and then all of a sudden started new fires a half mile away from that. These go very quickly. These can affect communities well past what you would think would be the impact zone because of high winds and pressure. All right, that's the end of my presentation. I don't know if I have any time for questions, but thank you very much for attending this morning.
We have time for two questions at the most. Anybody in the back? I'm sorry, tell us your name.
Constance Good, Volunteer Inc. I'd like to know what do we need to do as this group here? What can we do to eliminate or protest the lines?
Well, that's a great question. And so the ask is, we'd like a letter upon a vote of the group in support of putting these lines underground. And the same, very similar letter, we can share the other letters from the other community groups that we will be presenting to the council, in particular, Councilman Falcone of Ward 1, saying, and he's one of the votes against putting these lines underground currently, and we'd like to change that vote to putting them underground. And so the big argument by the council is, well, it's going to delay the project, and it's going to cost too much money. Here's the issue. The cost will be socialized. In fact, Ken Calvert, who's the head of the Appropriations Committee in Congress currently right now, has said he'll go find us the money to put these lines underground. So the money doesn't seem to be an issue. It's the time, and once again I say, because of the Altadena fires, this project has been put on hold because they have to get Los Angeles ready for the Olympics in 2028. There are no crews really working on this right now. So it's delayed regardless. So while it's delayed, let's get a new supplemental EIR or EIR done and get the right project built. So petitioning the council, talking to your council folks, and hopefully a letter.
One more question and short answer. In the back, Herman.
Hi, good morning, Dr. Kimberly Tate. You were saying that technology has changed, and in light of the technology changing, how is it, kind of piggybacking on that, how is it that we can get them to upgrade to and affirm to the new technology that's available?
Well, certainly they can do a lot more when it comes to subsidizing people's costs of putting solar on their houses. Every single house in Southern California with the sunshine we have is its own potential generator. That would keep us from ever needing more electricity. Now, does it close that gap between 300 and 500 megawatts we currently have a shortage on the system? Probably not anytime soon, but like there are technologies that are coming for smaller little generators in neighborhoods. Once again, you would hardly even notice that they were there, that you could be putting in place that would be a lot more reliable, quite frankly. There's also battery storage. If we invested in battery storage, we could store all that energy. And then if we were to go out for 4 or 5 hours, like what happened in 2006, we'd have that energy stored. We could release it during the time of the outage. We could buy backup units. We've got lots of money in our reserves, once again, to do it over at RPU. You and I paid that money. We put it in through our bills over the last 20 years. Well, we could buy components. If this ever went out, that were basically sitting right next to them, we could plug and play, right? Swap out the units, get some new units in as quickly as possible. So there's lots of different ways that we could do it. I'd be more than willing to talk to you ad nauseum about all the technologies that are out there, but the world as far as electricity delivery is not even remotely the same as what it looked like in 2004. Remember what your computers and your cell phones and the internet looked like in 2004, 2006, I should say? Well, that's exactly what's happened times 3 or 4 times here in the state of California with all the money we've invested in the past. Thank you. I feel the Grim Reaper is coming in. Something on my shoulder.
Let's give him a hand. That was a lot of technical stuff to listen to this early.